There we go. Okay. Just mute tunes. There we go. Right. Greetings, guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome back to the stream. My name's Rin, and today, as you might see from the side panel over here, we're doing chapters 13 and 14 of Juliet Marillier's Son of the Shadows. Now, apologies if you're just listening to this as the audio, because the audio is probably going to be a bit less clear, or it's probably going to be a bit different because I can't find my mic at the moment. So we're going back to the headset mic. Hopefully it works. I don't know. Anyway, let me just check the Twitch feed and make sure that it's still muted. It is not. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so that's good. There. Alright. So, here we go. As we're going with stuff, if anyone has questions, comments, queries, what have you, as usual, feel free to share them and stuff. Today's fidgety project / what I'm working on over here is trying to mend a pair of jeans, which I've successfully done a few times now, but it's to the point that I actually need to add fabric to it, not just sew up the hole. So we've got some extra over here to do just that. So yeah, if I kind of space for a second periodically, it's because I'm trying to not stab myself or cut a bigger hole in this thing unintentionally. Neither of which would necessarily be that great, you know? So, it is what it is. Anyway, yeah. So, what do we got? At the end of... Actually, does anyone have any questions or observations you want to share right up front? Because I know Honeycomb had a general query, but it's for the last scene in 14, so we'll get to that in a little bit. Yeah. Alright. One second. Okay. So, where's my phone? There's my phone. Okay, here we go. So 12 ended, just as a short recap here. 12 ended with Connor, so Leiden's uncle, being sad that Kieran kind of doesn't seem to trust him anymore, which, like, is shocking when you've lied to the guy for the entirety of the time that you've known him, that he would have some trust issues. And that when he found out, like, hey, I've been learning from and living with my older brother for, like, the last 18 years, and no one saw fit to say anything. Like, that would kind of maybe perhaps alter your perception of how family dynamics work just a little bit. And Connor wanted Leiden and her son Johnny to go with them to go with him to the Nemetons, so the druid camp, to be part of the druidic order. Alright. So 13 opens with Leiden and Johnny just kind of having a day out at one of the lakes, having a little swim, and Bran shows up because he's mid-discussion with Leiden's brother, Sean. And at this point he doesn't know that Johnny exists, just that he missed Leiden, and we know from the excerpts of the site that Leiden's had that the rest of his guys have kind of been on his case for, pretty much since Leiden left, for, like, sending her off. And yeah, okay. So all the old bits are gone now. There we go. Yeah, so they've been on his case for sending her off, and just kind of dismissing her presence in all of their lives at this point, really. And yeah. So he shows up, and the romantic elements, shall we say, are rekindled with, very little like, only word coming to mind is leeway, and that's not it. Very little, like, time between dude showing up and the kind of requisite reuniting makeout sesh, as you tend to see just in storylines with people in general as a thing. If there's a romantic element in there and it's possible. And meanwhile, the Raven, who I can never remember the name of, but the Raven that Karen left with Leiden when he came for Serica's funeral, is keeping watch, making sure that everything's okay. And at this point, we don't know what Kieran's kind of endgame is. He still seems kind of like an unknown quantity. We know that he is the youngest brother, that he just wants to kind of live his life and be himself and stuff. But also that in doing that, like he was trying to figure out who he was and his past, and ended up going to find his mother, who we know is Lady Una, the one who kind of orchestrated the entire events of Book 1. And that she has some kind of plan for him. We don't know if he wants to go along with the plan or not exactly, but it seems kind of heavily implied that that's sort of where he's going. So getting help from a potentially dubious source is an issue unto itself, but when he left the Raven with Leiden, it was with the express statement of, like, he would be there in a time of great need, but that it would only be a one-time thing, and that'll come into play in 14. So we've got okay. Okay. I got distracted by trying not to stab myself, and now I can't remember what I was saying. 1 second. Yeah. So, she's got the Raven, who is just kind of hanging out, doing his thing, has kind of taken on the role of watchdog, and tends to let Leiden know if anyone is sort of about in the area, if there's any kind of danger or what have you. And at this point, she's at Seven Waters, in a relatively secure environment and stuff. Now, Bran shows up because he wants to see Leiden, and because he's kind of on a mission from Sean, or about to go on a mission from Sean, and needs to see him, but also to share the news that Fionn died. Like, he was killed by somebody. And so Fionn being the lord that Neve was married to, who was violently abusive and who they essentially faked her death so that she could escape from being under his control. We know from the previous chapter when Kieran showed up that Neve is safe with him at the moment, and is kind of the worse for wear, but at least at that point, according to what he said, seemed to be getting better. So, that's a positive. And, like, right now I'm just doing a real rough whip stitch on the hole there so that I can just patch some gene material over it. Because at this point, that's about all I can figure to do with these. On both sides. But yeah. So, we've got... In this particular scene, we've got Leiden, who was just swimming in a shift. So, a slip, essentially. Just kind of swimming around in her underwear. Johnny, who was, like, having a sleep in a nice little comfy spot on his blanket, and Bran just kind of shows up. And at the point that, like, Johnny wakes up, and Bran immediately jumps to, like, oh, well, you have a kid now, so obviously, you got married off. So, which local lord did you get married off to? Because, like, obviously that's the better option, because, you know, I'm not worthy of anything, but I'm still salty about it. Kind of a deal, you know? And is very shocked when the answer is that Leiden is in fact not married to anyone, and that the kid is his. But, relatively short-lived issue there. But that is part of the kind of character arc, I suppose. And one of those, like, situations of, men like me can't have families because we lead, dangerous lives and stuff, regardless of, the other people involved or anything else. But she's been lighting a protection candle for him to make sure that he's safe. Since they parted ways the first time, and continues to do so. And there's a point where she has a vision, because she's been getting visions a lot recently, and she has a vision of Aisling being distraught enough at her brother Aemon rescinding his blessing that she marry Sean, that she decides taking a dive off the congrats, Ash. That is really cool. Yeah, I know. Hanging up a mirror, hanging up a repurposed mirror that you decided looked cool on the wall instead of like on a table or something. Like that's some seriously cool stuff. Yay. Good evening, appropriate time zone. Yeah. It was technically a mirror tray, but that didn't let that stop me. Exactly. Very cool. Yeah, it has an epic frame. That's all. And depending on what kind of tray it is, you could even, like, have little knickknacks on it, like a shelf or something. Seems pretty cool to me. But yeah. There we go. Awesome. Also, welcome. Good seeing you around these parts. How you doing? In process of, like, okay. Let me finish the thought that I was on and then we can go from there. Should go with sleep. But meh. Hope you two are doing well. Yeah, doing well here. Far as I know, Honeycomb is not in the chat right now, but is definitely going to pop in later. But yeah, so, okay. So, also, yeah, you need sleep, dude. Come on. You need to use at least some of the sleeps. So soon it was them. Yeah, no, one of them's me. I have it open in another window. Just to make sure that the stream is actually functioning properly and all that. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. We've got... Actually... Yeah. So, we've got, Leiden having visions and stuff, and I realize that it's like, it's a serious, I keep knocking the mic, apologies. I realize that it's like a serious, plot point, a serious development and all that, but there's just something very, like, Deus Ex Machina meets, like, the omnipotent NPC character sort of situation of, like, I need an assist, so I will go to the lake to talk to Finbar because he knows everything about everything. And then, the visions themselves kind of filling that same role of, like, how did you know about this thing? I have sources? Yeah. My sources of, like, I saw it happen in my brain. But I can't tell you that because that would be bad. Yeah. So, yeah, a very straight line there. Anyway. One sec. So, what are we doing? Yeah. Just like in one of the previous chapters where, Serica IDs, the kid's dad by how difficult the birth was. Bran hears Leiden call her kid Johnny and has a bit of a freak out that, like, that's the name that she went with. It's like, dude, I named the kid after his dad, you. So, yeah. And, okay. Cut that. Alright. And there's some discussion of, like, the real history, as it were, between Bran and Leiden's family, because there's evidently like a lot of bad blood there, at least on one side, and trying to figure out what went down. And one sec. Yeah, no, it's one second. Okay. So, yeah. There's a lot of bad blood between the person that we know as Bran and the family that Leiden happens to be part of. But he's kind of coming around to the idea that maybe he got some faulty intel, because he trusts Leiden and he trusts Sean to a degree, and both of them are cool and from the same family line. So the entire thing is probably not so bad, but like, you know, some of the main players who had a hand in his life directly are still, you know, on the shoot on sight list, if you will. Or at least the make their life kind of annoying list. And yeah. So at one point, there's a scene where Leiden is there at the river lake. Yeah, it's a lake. And is swimming with Johnny, and he's having a sleep on his little blanket. Bran shows up, and yeah, there's a conflict there, but like also sees the same like bee design that's on his arm, the first design that he got tattooed when he was like 9, on the embroidery on one of the squares of the blanket. And has a bit of a moment with that. Moving forward a little bit, after Leiden has a vision that I can never remember her name. That Aisling is in imminent danger, either from herself or her brother, depending. She goes to get some kind of info or advice or something from Finbar, and he's basically just there as like the local knowledgeable old dude NPC. And we get a bit of like, oh yes, I know exactly what's going on because obviously, and yeah, cue omnipotent Deus Ex Machina situation. Which I realize that's not entirely the proper way to use that as a phrase, but there we go. And in order to make sure that Aisling is safe, Leiden goes for a visit, as it were, with the intention of bringing Aisling back to Seven Waters. Now, also, in and among all of this, when Bran showed up, it was partly to share that Liam, so the current Lord of Seven Waters, and Leiden's uncle, was killed. Somehow. And that, no. Fionn was killed. Liam hadn't been killed at that point. But right around the same time that she has a vision of Aisling, she also has a vision of Liam. And the way that the site works, you can't quite tell what's real and what's just a potential thing or like what have you. Just that it's a vision of a possible future. And if you make a move to prevent something, that might make whatever it is that you saw happen. If you don't do something, that might make whatever it is that you saw happen. So, very much a catch-22 type situation. And how? And, ow. Like that one quote on the internet where people who time travel are always afraid that any small thing they do will change the course of history, but then aren't going to do anything in their regular time because it won't do anything anyway. Like if it works in one place, sure it'll work in the other too. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, guys, come on. Uh, yeah. And, like, she's getting all these kind of conflicting visions and stuff of, Aisling being depressed and jumping off the battlements, and Sean just kind of wandering the halls, being all sad because there's no kids, there's no family, everyone's dead from the sounds of it, and he's just there by himself, like alone in the estate. And in amongst that is where, like, the vision about Liam getting shot with an arrow showed up. Yeah. Which, based on what I remember from the first read through and the characters involved in all this and stuff, Liam was shot with a British arrow, right? So the only options at this point are, like, either there's British forces who knew where they were going to be and ambushed him, or someone who has access to the same materials, Ammon, organized, led, whatever, an attack. And at least, because, like, jumping forward a little bit, we know from 14 that Aemon ordered the hit on Liam, essentially. And that he doesn't think that anyone is privy to that information. Most likely because everyone is either part of his household or dead. But, there we go. And that he's had Aisling kind of boarded up in, like, a glorified cell for a while. And, like, when they finally get to the keep, no one's allowed in or out until, like, Surrogate kind of busts out the authoritative, like, daughter of the Lord type voice. And they finally open the gate. But all of that in capacity of, like, in addition to getting a vision of Aisling being, like, really depressed for an extended period of time, also had a vision of Bran and Gull having been captured. And it's kind of, like, implied very heavily that if they don't get, like, rescued in the very near future, both are gonna be dead. And somehow Aemon, because they're being held by Aemon in his torture basement, swell guy, that one. They're being held by Aemon, and somehow he figured out that Bran has a near crippling fear, and I realize that word's kind of loaded. So, let's see, a pretty well debilitating fear. There we go. We'll go with that. Of the dark and enclosed spaces. And we know that from, like, some of the previous interactions that he's had with Lydon and the nightmares and stuff, but it hasn't been stated, like, outright. It's just kind of an implication, and everyone involved understands that, like, there's a big bad that happened. We don't talk about it, but, like, sometimes dude needs a little bit of an extra assist. Doesn't like the dark, and leaves lamps on whenever he can. That sort of thing. And yeah. So once again, popping back a little bit because I forgot about the, plant side of this. We've got wolfsbane and pine needles being burned at Liam's funeral. And if I'm remembering right, that's the same kind of combination that was present for Evan. So the smith who was part of Bran's group. And yeah, so funerary practices and all that. And in and amongst, like, all the rest of this, we've got, like, Leiden ends up using her knowledge of Aemon being a traitor as the bargaining chip. So the bargaining chip for getting Bran and Gull released and herself out of the keep, and getting Aisling sent back to Seven Waters. So in and amongst all of that, because a lot of the intervening period is getting ready to go, or the dialogue about the visions that she's had, that sort of thing. So we've got a young mother who has some medical knowledge. Like, she's the local healer for her people, right? And is somewhat favored, sort of, kind of, not really, but ish, by the fair folk in the forest, right? I say kind of, not really, but sort of, because, like, they have an interest in her life, but not in her living it, you know? It's kind of like, we want you to do the thing and be yourself and live up to your potential and all that, but only in the capacity that we've set forward, and stuff, because, like, fate and destiny and all that. And once again, I'm reminded of Supernatural, because, like, yeah. At least in some respects. And where was I going with that? Oh, yeah. So we've got a young woman who's, like, Leiden's like 18 at this point. A kid who, I think Johnny's about 6 months old at this point in the storyline. And her contingent of guards from Seven Waters, who Sean sent along with her. And at this point, she and Finbar are the only ones that know that Aemon organized Liam's assassination, if not took direct part in it. And because of that, she uses that as her bargaining chip. Now, it can easily, be said that in doing so might not be the best of ideas, just because, then, Aemon is still kind of seen to be in relatively good standing and is allowed to maintain his position in whatever alliance is formed. But also, that's the only way that she can see to get everyone out. And that is the top priority at this point. And it's rather than just outright letting them go, which, I don't know if it's more that would be too big of a blow to his pride, or that he's feeling like a manipulative ass, because at this point, either could be the more viable of the two. But Aemon makes a deal with Leiden that if they that Aisling can go free, and if she can find where Gull and Bran are being kept, then they can go free too. But only insofar as, that they won't actively be shot at and hunted until the sun goes down. So the raven, the raven that Kieran left when he was there for Sirika's funeral get sent off to get help, because if you remember, the point was made that the Raven was there to offer aid, but could only be called on once. So the Raven, who has at this point been an extra set of eyes to help watch Johnny, to be like an alert, and like a friend when she was feeling kind of isolated, is gone. In theory, she's now going to have the company of both Gull and Bran, but the Raven friend, who has been hanging out for the last, like, 6-7 months, is gone. Or, well, the last several months at least. Johnny's old enough to start, like, kind of crawling around on his own, so however long that would have been. And okay. It's like doing something is kind of a double-edged sword, because it helps my brain stay on the task until it doesn't. Alright, one sec. Plus one side of these is almost fixed, so that's something. It's not the best stitch job I've ever done, but it looks like it might well be effective, so that's about all I care about at this point. Anyway, moving on. Oh yeah, so there's a point in here where at Liam's funeral, there's wolfsbane and pine needles that are put on the fire for like aromatic herbs and stuff. And as the humans are inside sharing a tankard of ale, or a cup, well, yeah, a cup of ale. Yeah, the cup of ale. In remembrance, Liam's wolfhounds are outside howling. And, like, each individual, each species really grieves in their own way, and it's just, it's cool that was incorporated in there. And Layden is sitting there and has a thought that it's only when the wolfhounds come in and, like, at Sean's call and sit by his feet that he officially becomes lord of the estate, because that's the most loyal of the household acknowledging someone as their human, in contrast to the growling, snarling dogs that guard the gates of Shadoof. So Aemon's estate, that are just looking for a reason to attack something. On top of Aemon pulling out the, like, Bat 9000 over here, account of, like, his life has gone bad and, like, he's made bad choices because Lyden didn't want to marry him. How about don't do that, maybe? Just as a thing. And then, eventually, Lyden ends up finding Gull and finding Bran, and between the vision and Aemon, like, kind of reveling in the idea of Bran getting stuck in a dark hole somewhere. She's able to find where he is, and Bran's practically, like, catatonic almost, from the sounds of it. Like, really beat up, like, half dead, not conscious, like, in any capacity. And Gull, for all of his massive injuries, has to carry him out because, like, dude is fully too heavy for Lyden to manage. Because, like, she can handle a lot of stuff, but, like, physically moving someone who's, like, probably 3 times her body weight is not one of them. Especially, like, when also managing, like, the kid on her back and all the rest of it. It's a lot. So we've got that as an element. And they have to cross the marsh in order to make it out. Also with the expectation that if Aemon's men catch them at any point, like, they're dead. That's just how it is. And going out that way into the marsh, there's only one way across it. Like, that's a known thing at this point. That's a known quantity in universe. Everyone involved knows that there's only one safe passage across the thing. But it's also known that Gull and Bran managed to cross said path with Neve. So there's a little bit more leeway there than there might be otherwise. Oh, that part's flat. Why is this? Okay. Try it this way. Okay, that's a little better. So, in theory at least, the parties involved should be able to get across, if everyone was able-bodied and, like, had clear heads and had not just been massively sleep-deprived and, not treated well for at least a couple of days. And if, like, panic wasn't part of the equation and all that. But all of those factors are in play, so not so great. But if you remember, Leiden sent the Raven off to get reinforcements, and there's a point when they're crossing the marsh, and, like, Gull cannot carry Bran anymore. His arms physically cannot do it. And, like, just needs a break, at least for a couple of minutes. And Leiden, like, they can both hear Aemon's men coming. And she knows that it's either they drop Bran and run, or they stay there and just die together. And she's going between those two options, and Gull's just like, yeah, no, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving him here, so yeah, no, that's not happening. And in the middle of that, there's kind of a ball of light at the end of the path, so it's literally a light at the end of the tunnel at this point. And it kind of resolves into a raven-shaped light blob. And the more it gets clearer, the more evident it is that it's the Raven that has been hanging out with Leiden. And at one point, it's flying across the marsh, and this, like, a leafy vine starts growing up to form, like, a small footpath across the marshes. And here we get back to Honeycomb's question of, like, what could that possibly be? And, like, short answer, I have no idea. But it's something that is fast growing in theory, right? That is either entirely of magical make or would be native to the area. Because in theory, at least, it's... Hadn't thought of it, but, like, if the bird is flying over and then the vines start growing, what about if the bird had some kind of seeds and was just dropping them, and the magic part of it for that or something was, like, making stuff, like, grow real fast? Because otherwise it would need to be pulling from the marsh itself, which is possible, but you would need to kind of pull it from the kind of bedrock of seeds and stuff that are in the marshscape, and most of those, because it's boglands, you know, most of those don't really survive the marshy process too well. I don't know. Because it's strong enough to support, like, a fully grown, like, muscly dude carrying another fully grown muscly dude across. So I'm not entirely sure on that. Because also, there's, like, is this a situation that we have to suspend the idea of actual physics kind of a thing? Or is this, like, using principles that are known and just, like, twisting them a little bit? Because the outcome would be different for both of those. Or the answer, I guess, would be different. Yeah. Okay. What does it sound like, though? Let me see. What would be a viney type water plant in Ulster? Because that, I'm not entirely sure. Okay. I'm still having to think about that, but I need to bind this off. Okay, on a plus, I've got one side that is fixed. I mean, it's a visibly different color, but it's fine. Yeah. So, let's see. There's no mention of flowers, but honeysuckle is a thing that exists. Blackthorn, no, that would definitely not be slow. Honeysuckle. And honeybind, woodbine, no, it's not honey. Yeah, woodbine, fairy trumpets, honeybind, trumpet flowers, goat's leaf, sweetsuckle, honeysuckle. Honeysuckle has long been a symbol of fidelity and affection. Those who wear honeysuckle are said to be able to dream of their true love. So, in the Victorian era, there was a ban on young girls bringing honeysuckle into the home because the heady fragrance of the flowers was believed to cause dreams that were far too risque for the sensibilities. Well then. Oh yeah. I went to the trouble of like putting together a little seasonal setup over here, and it's not even visible. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's the same like spots where the cards are and stuff, but we've got little seasonal kitties, and down here it says, what was it? We are a little afraid of ghosts, but we are looking forward to pumpkin cake. So yeah, little kitty. Or a bear dressed as a kitty. Yeah. And then we've got a couple of little bear friends over here. So yeah. Ah. Anyway. So that's there. Yeah, based on the plants that would be extant in the region. And there's my needle. And in the description, I'm guessing honeysuckle. That may or may not be an accurate assessment, but it's what I get. So that's what we're going with. Yeah. Alright. Yeah, so after that, there we go. So after the birds flying across and stuff, they're crossing the marsh on this like mysterious plant bridge. And at this point, everyone's like exhausted and just done with the whole situation, trying to not lose some kind of hope of making it out okay. And everything kind of feels a bit overwhelming, as you might expect, you know? Someone that you considered a friend for an extended period of time has, like, gone completely off the rails and is now trying to actively kill you and has already killed your uncle directly or otherwise. And you just made a deal with him that you can't talk about it. And in amongst all the rest of it, it feels like the path that they're on is never gonna end. At which point there's like the light at the end of this whole thing resolves into the shape of someone holding a lantern. And they're only a few feet from the opposite shoreline, and that's where the chapter cuts. So, we don't quite know who is there. I'm guessing it's probably Kieran, just because. But we don't know definitively as of yet. Yeah. So, that is where we end for this week. Any questions, queries, that's the same thing. I do that every time too, like it's like it's the same thing, just said differently. Anyway, anyone have observations, questions, requests for next round, what have you? I don't remember off the top of my head what we figured, but there's a couple of books in the Discord that we've got as possibles for the next read, because there's one more week in this. There's 2 more chapters, and then we're gonna be reading something else because, like, both Honeycomb and I are kind of over the shenanigans at the moment, so yeah. Past that, though, anything from anybody? I don't know. Yeah. So that is it for now. Remember that for next week, it's the last 2, so 15 and 16, and like if there's an epilogue or something, I can't remember. I think in the audio there's like a blurb from oh no. There we go. There's a blurb from the next book, I think. Yeah, there's a half-hour extract from Child of Prophecy, but we're not reading Child of Prophecy just yet. Yeah. Because no. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So that's what we've got. And that's where we're gonna end stream today. Alright. Hope everyone has a fabulous rest of your day. This should be up on YouTube by this time tomorrow. And I will see you all later. Have a good one, everybody. Bye! Alright.